Okay, Saxon 4 math class, it's time for lesson 37, reading fractions and mixed numbers from a number line. So let's warm up with some mental math. For 780 minus 200, let's just look at the hundreds. So 700 minus 200 is 500 plus 80, 580. Now, 870 minus 230. Let's attack this one the same way. Let's look at hundreds. Now, 800s minus 200s gives us 600. So let's keep that in the back of our minds, 600. Now, 70 minus 30, that would be 40. So 640. With 19, let's pretend that it's 20 and add that on to 157 and then take away 176. For this one, I like to think that 58 just needs 2 more to be 60, so let's steal that 2 from the 6 and think about what it leaves behind. So now we've got 60 plus what was left behind gives you 64. The needle is pointing to what number on this scale? So let's look. We've got 40 and then it jumps all the way to 60. But there are longer tick marks, okay? So halfway in between 40 and 60 would be 50, okay? So that really means that we're between 40 and 50, and that would be 45. Altogether, how many sides do 4 triangles have? Okay, well, each triangle has 3, so 4 times 3 equals 12 sides. Choose the more reasonable estimate for the diameter of a music CD. Would it be more like 12 centimeters or 12 meters? My benchmark for meters is from the floor to the doorknob. So 12 of those lengths would be ginormous. It has to be 12 centimeters. Okay, let's look at this. We've got 3 times 3, that's 9. 9 times 3 is 27. And 27 plus 3 equals 30. Problem solving tells us to choose an appropriate strategy. The rectangle shown represents how a plot of land will be divided among 4 different owners. Area C is the same size as Area D. Areas C and D together are the same size as Area B. Areas B, C, and D together are the same size as Area A. What fraction of the whole rectangle is each area? So what we have to do is imagine that everything is split into the tiniest pieces here, okay? So we would have 2 more on this row when we would have 4. And then we would have a second row of 4, so that's 8. So we know that the tiniest pieces are eighths. So both C and D would be 1/8. But what about B? It would be 2/8, right? But that's not the best way to say that. It's really better to say 1/4. And let me show you why. If we draw this diagram just like they have it, and I'm going to freehand it here. So this is big area A. This is B. And this is C and D. You have to imagine what would it be like if we just did this. Then what would area B be? We've divided it into 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it's really 1/4, isn't it? Okay? And A, if we just divided it right down the middle and looked at 2 equal parts, then A would be 1/2. So yes, even though we could call B 2/8, that's not the best way to leave it. It's not in what's called simplest form. We have to get it down to the very smallest numbers. My trick I always try is to see if both numbers will divide in half. And if they will, you can keep going until you get down to that doesn't work anymore. So that's one method. Okay, example 1. To what number is the arrow pointing? Well, here's 5 and here's 6. So I know that I have to count how many sections there are. Not tick marks, but sections. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. And it's pointing over to the 3rd tick mark. So wherever it's pointing, that's my numerator. How many sections altogether, that's my denominator. I'm past the 5, so I know I'm 5 and 3/4 of the way to 6. So 5 and 3/4. Example 2, to what number is each arrow pointing? Okay, we know we're past 17. Let's look how many sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's pointing over to the 1, 2, 3rd tick mark, so this one is 17 and 3/4. Okay, let's look at B. We know we're past the 36, right? Ooh, we've got a lot of sections in this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're 4/8. But that's really what? Do you see that that's 1/2? It's also halfway between. So 36 and 1/2. I need to go back to look at the rest of the problems. Okay, looking at C, it says copy and show 23 and 1/2 on the number line. So you would have to copy exactly what they have, but your point or your arrow needs to go between the 23 and 24, so that would be pointing right to the middle one. Okay? And D, copy and show 9 and 1/4 on the number line. This is the trickiest one. Okay, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to see how many tick marks they have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then on the 8th I have my next whole number. So we had 9, 2, 3, 4, and then on the 8th we had the next whole number, and it wants 9 and 1/4. Okay, but we have 8 sections here. Well, I know that 1/2 of that would be right here. It would be pointing right there. And I know that 1/2 of a 1/2 is a 1/4. So do you see the point that is in between the 9 and the 9 1/2? It's right here, isn't it? So this is where 9 and 1/4 would be. If we wrote that the first time and we did it exactly like what we've been doing, showing that there are 8 sections altogether, that this is pointing to the second tick mark, we would get 9 and 2/8. But again, we're learning that 2/8 is really the same as 1/4. That is in simplest terms. Okay. Name each fraction or mixed number marked by the arrows below. So let's look at A. It's between 0 and 1. So we do not have a whole number for this one. It's just going to be a fraction. It's part of 1, but we haven't made it to 1 whole. So let's count the sections. 1, 2, 3, 4 altogether. It's pointing to the 3rd tick mark. So 3 out of 4 altogether is 3/4. Now let's look at B. We know that each tick mark is a 4th now, don't we? So it's 2 and 1/4. Let's look at C. We know we're past the 1. Okay, let's figure out the sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's pointing to the first one. So 1 out of 4 sections all together. So it's 1 and 1/4. Let's look at D. We're between 0 and 1. As a matter of fact, we are halfway in between. So that is 1/2 for D. Let's look at E. We're halfway between the 2 and the 3, so we're 2 and 1/2. Copy and locate 25 and 3/4. So let's do that first. 25, and they're divided into 4 sections. Our point for that one would be right here. 26 and 1/2 would be past the right in between, halfway in between the 26 and 27, pointing here. And 27 and 1/4, we've already figured out that these tick marks are worth 1/4. So the first tick mark past the 27. And you need to go back and check lesson 36. Hit pause as you check 1 through 9, and remember, you are allowed to correct your mistakes. Please do that before you turn them in so they won't be counted wrong. Hit pause as you check 10 through 18. Hit pause as you check 19 through 27. Hit pause as you check 28 through 30 and the early finisher if you did that. and you are finished.